Have you ever felt that strange rush of power when you humiliate someone who absolutely deserved it? Most people won't admit it, but let's be honest. There's something satisfying about putting a toxic stranger in their place. But what if that one petty moment spiraled into something much bigger, darker, and way more twisted than you could have ever imagined? This isn't just a story about embarrassment. It's about pride, consequences, and the shocking way karma comes knocking when you least expect it. Stick around, because what started as a simple act of humiliation quickly turned into a life-altering nightmare that no one saw coming. The rain had been falling since morning, relentless and heavy, soaking the streets until the gutters overflowed like miniature rivers. By the time I left work, the sky had already darkened into a bruised shade of gray, and the city looked more like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. Everything blurred, edges running into each other. I ducked into the small cafe on the corner, mostly out of desperation. The neon sign above the door flickered between cafe and a buzzing half-lit sea that made it look like the word was trying to disappear. Inside, the warmth was immediate, almost suffocating after the chill of the rain. My jacket dripped onto the tiled floor as I shook myself off. The place smelled of strong espresso, old books, and something sweet, maybe cinnamon rolls that had been left in the oven a few minutes too long. It wasn't crowded. A couple of students sat near the back with laptops glowing in front of them. An older couple shared a pot of tea in silence. And then, there was him. The man sat near the window, though you could hardly see outside through the streaks of rain. He had a battered briefcase at his feet, a threadbare coat around his shoulders, and a framed photograph sitting upright on the table. Not a phone, not a book, just a photo frame like someone might keep on a nightstand. At first glance, it seemed odd. Who brings a framed picture to a cafe? But I didn't think much of it then. I ordered a black coffee, found a seat 2 tables away, and tried to shake the wet out of my hair. That was when I noticed his eyes. He wasn't drinking, wasn't moving. He just stared at the photo. And for some reason, I couldn't stop staring at him. The barista, a young woman with tired eyes, tried politely to take his order. He waved her off with a vague gesture, muttering something about waiting for someone. But no one came. The photo on his table was angled slightly toward him. And from where I sat, I could make out a girl's face, maybe 9 or 10 years old. Dark hair pulled into pigtails. A missing tooth gave her smile a crooked charm. The man's expression was hard to read. Pride, sadness, obsession. It flickered between all of them like light through shifting clouds. After a while, curiosity got the better of me. I leaned toward the couple at the next table and whispered, "Do you know him?" The woman shook her head quickly, eyes widening as if she didn't want to be asked. Her husband muttered, "He's been coming here all week. Sits with that photo. Doesn't buy anything." That piqued my interest. Why would someone sit in a cafe day after day with nothing but a child's photograph for company? The barista tried again. "Sir, if you're not ordering, I'm afraid..." He snapped his head up. His voice was sharp, trembling with a kind of fury that seemed to come out of nowhere. "I'm waiting for my daughter." The entire cafe went silent. Even the students looked up from their laptops. The barista opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. She glanced at her manager behind the counter, who only shrugged helplessly. The man lowered his head again, muttering, "She'll be here any minute now." And he kept staring at the photo. I should have minded my own business. Most people did. That's the unspoken rule of city life. You don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. But there was something in the way he said it. "I'm waiting for my daughter." It carried weight, like grief, sharpened into a weapon. I remembered being 8 years old, waiting outside a grocery store for my mother. She had told me to stay put while she ran in for just one thing. 20 minutes passed, then 30. At some point, I started crying, certain she had forgotten me. When she finally came out, arms full of groceries, eyes apologetic, I had been too angry to hug her, too scared to let go of her hand all the way home. That old panic stirred again as I looked at the stranger. What if his daughter really was missing? Or worse, what if she wasn't missing at all, and he was just a lonely man clinging to some memory? I sipped my coffee, trying not to think too hard about it, but I couldn't. His presence was like static in the room, filling the silence even when no one spoke. And when he finally did speak again, it sent a ripple through everyone listening. She was wearing her red jacket. The last time I saw her, red jacket, white shoes. She promised she'd come back. He wasn't talking to anyone in particular, just talking, like the words were leaking out against his will. I didn't realize until then that my hands were trembling against the warm ceramic mug. The next day, the rain returned, and so did I. I told myself I was just stopping for coffee, just killing time before heading home. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wanted to see if he'd be there again. And he was. Same table, same coat, same photograph, but something had changed. The girl in the picture, had she looked different yesterday? Or was it my imagination? Her hair seemed shorter, the smile wider. The background behind her wasn't the same faded park bench I remembered, but something else. A carousel, maybe? I blinked hard. It had to be my memory playing tricks, right? The barista caught me staring. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, almost guilty. That was when the first thread of doubt tugged at me. Not about him, but about myself. What was I seeing? A grieving father? A delusional man? A liar? And why did it matter so much to me? The rain drummed against the glass. The The stranger sat motionless, staring at the photograph. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just coincidence. Whatever his story was, I was already caught in it. On the third day, I didn't pretend anymore. I walked into the cafe, ordered my coffee, and sat directly across from him. His eyes flicked up, surprised. No one ever sat at his table. His hand hovered over the photograph almost protectively. "I see you here a lot," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Mind if I ask who she is?" For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then, in a low voice, he said, "My daughter, Emily." The name hit the air like a confession. "She's 10 years old," he continued. "She loves carousels, cotton candy. She used to beg me to take her to the park every Saturday. And then one day," his voice cracked, "she didn't come back." Silence spread across the table like spilled ink. I searched for words, but before I could speak, he slid the photograph toward me. "Look at her," he whispered. I did, and my stomach clenched, because the picture was not the same as yesterday. This time, Emily was standing in front of a school building. No carousel, no missing tooth. Her hair was tied differently. She looked older. I blinked rapidly, almost dizzy. "Beautiful," I managed to say, handing it back. He smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. "She'll be here soon," she promised. After he left that night, the barista walked over to clear his untouched cup of tea. She leaned closer to me and whispered, "Don't get involved?" "What do you mean?" I asked. She shook her head quickly. "He tells everyone the same thing. His daughter's coming, but nobody ever sees her." I frowned. "So, he's lying?" "I don't know," she muttered. "But the weirdest part? That photo? Every time I glance at it, it looks different, like the girl's older or in a new place." My skin prickled. So I wasn't imagining it, but how could a photo change? The next evening, I came back again. This time, I found him talking to the old couple who usually sat near the back. "She was wearing her red jacket," he told them. "You might have seen her. She comes here sometimes." The couple looked uncomfortable but polite. The woman offered a kind smile and said, "We'll keep an eye out." He nodded, clutching the photo tightly. When I sat down across from him, he leaned in, lowering his voice. "They think I'm crazy," he said. "But she's real. She's out there." "I believe you," I said automatically, though I wasn't sure I did. He slid the photograph to me again, and my breath caught. This time, Emily wasn't smiling. Her eyes looked fearful. She stood in a hallway I didn't recognize. Her hands were raised slightly, as if she was mid-motion. What is this?" I stammered. "She's trying to tell me something," he whispered. "She's in trouble. I just don't know where." I pushed the photo back quickly, my fingers trembling. This wasn't grief anymore. This was something else, something impossible. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's face, changing, shifting, trapped in some silent cry for help. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that maybe he carried multiple photos, swapping them out without anyone noticing. But deep down, I knew the changes were too specific, too strange. The next day, I skipped work and went straight to the cafe. He was already there, of course. Same seat, same photograph. "You came back," he said softly, almost relieved. I didn't bother with small talk. "Who took these photos? Where do they come from?" He smiled faintly, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. More like resignation. "She sends them to me," he said. I froze. What? She finds ways? Through the photograph? Through dreams? Through strangers?" His eyes gleamed with something between madness and faith. "She's not gone. She's reaching out, and I'm the only one listening." That night, something happened that made me question everything. As we sat together in silence, I dared to reach out and turn the photo toward myself. And right before my eyes, the image shifted. Emily's smile flickered. The background bled into new shapes. The missing tooth reappeared, then vanished. And then, clear as day, words scrawled across the bottom of the photo. "Help me." I shoved the photo back toward him, my pulse hammering. "Did you see that?" He nodded calmly, almost as if he'd been waiting for it. "She's closer now," he whispered. "She's finally reaching both of us." The cafe felt suddenly colder. The chatter of other customers faded into static, and I realized with bone-deep certainty, I wasn't just an observer anymore. I was part of this story. The next morning, I returned to the cafe, though my hands shook the whole walk there. The barista, the one who had warned me before, pulled me aside when I ordered. "You need to stop talking to him," she whispered. I frowned. "Why?" "Because that man's daughter didn't go missing last year." She lowered her voice further. "She went missing 15 years ago." The words lodged in my throat like glass. "That's impossible," I muttered. "The photo, she's still a child." The barista gave me a pitying look. "Exactly, and no one ever found her." When I sat down across from him, I couldn't stop staring at the photograph. "How old is Emily?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated. 10. I leaned forward. "She's been 10 for 15 years? For a second, his expression faltered. He looked older, wearier, like a mask had slipped. "You think I'm lying," he said bitterly. "Everyone thinks so, but you saw it. You saw her write to us." He slammed the photo down between us, almost daring me to deny it. And there it was again, her fearful eyes, her hands pressing against an unseen barrier. The words, "help me," had faded, replaced with something new, behind him. I felt ice crawl down my spine. Slowly, I lifted my gaze. The stranger's face was unreadable. That night, against all reason, I followed him when he left the cafe. He walked slowly, as if burdened by invisible weight, until he reached a crumbling 2-story house on the edge of town. The curtains were drawn, the paint was peeling, but lights glowed faintly inside. I lingered across the street, my pulse thundering. Then, to my shock, he beckoned me. "You might as well come in," he said softly. "She wants you to." Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood. Photographs lined the walls, but every single one was of Emily. Different ages, different settings. Sometimes she looked 5, sometimes 12, sometimes younger again. I stopped dead. "What is this?" I whispered. "My proof," he said. "She's alive, but she can't move on until I find her." He led me into a dimly lit study. On the desk lay a worn leather journal. He opened it to the middle, revealing page after page of frantic handwriting. "She talks to me here too," he said. "Through dreams, through ink. Sometimes I wake up and the words are already written." I leaned closer. The pages were covered in scrawls, looping letters, and drawings of a carousel, a red jacket, a school hallway. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A drawing of me, sitting at the cafe, with the caption, "He will help." My mouth went dry. "Why me?" He smiled faintly, with a kind of grim certainty. "Because she chose you." I wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But before I could, he pressed the photograph into my hands again. This time, Emily's eyes stared straight into mine. Her lips were parted, as though mid-scream. And the background behind her? It wasn't a carousel, or a school, or a hallway. It was this very house. The same peeling wallpaper, the same dusty curtains. "She's here," I whispered. The stranger's face lit up with a feverish kind of joy. "Yes, she never left. She's been waiting all along." I turned toward the darkened hallway beyond the study, my throat tight. For the first time, I thought I heard something faint, a child's voice, calling for help. The stranger guided me deeper into the creaking house. Every step echoed like we were intruders in some otherworldly place. We passed bedrooms filled with toys, tiny dresses neatly folded, dolls arranged in perfect rows. They looked untouched, yet dust layered everything. At the end of the hallway stood a door with 3 padlocks. The wood was scratched, as though something inside had clawed to get out. "That's where she hides," the stranger whispered, almost reverently. A sound came from behind the door. A laugh, a child's laugh. But it didn't sound playful, it sounded cruel. In the living room, he showed me an old box of VHS tapes. Each was labeled with a year. "Watch," he insisted, sliding one into a dusty player. Static. Then an image. Emily, spinning on a carousel, her red jacket vivid against the blur. She waved at the camera. But then the tape flickered. Emily wasn't smiling anymore. Her face twisted in terror. She pressed her palms to the screen and mouthed words I could almost hear. "He's lying." I turned to the stranger. "What is this?" He was trembling, whispering, "Do you see her? Do you see how she's still with me?" I didn't answer, because on the screen, just before it cut to static, I saw something else. A figure behind her, tall, familiar, the stranger himself. That night, when he finally fell asleep in a chair, I couldn't resist. I wandered back into the house alone. The basement door groaned as I pushed it open. A sour smell hit me. The stairs led down into darkness. My phone's flashlight cut through cobwebs and broken furniture, and then I saw it. A wall covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Every single one of Emily. Some smiling, some crying, some not moving at all. Pinned beneath the photos was a newspaper clipping, "Local girl still missing after 15 years. And scrawled across it in ink, "Not missing, never left." I turned to leave. My heart hammered so hard I thought I'd faint. Then I heard it. "Help me," a little girl's whisper. I spun, the flashlight beam shaking. At the far end of the basement, behind an iron grate, I saw her. Emily. Exactly as she was in the photos, 10 years old, her face pale, eyes wide. She gripped the bars and whispered again. "He's lying." I stumbled closer. "Emily, how are you here?" She shook her head frantically. "Not me, not alive, not dead. Stuck." My blood froze. "What do you mean, stuck?" I whispered. Before she could answer, footsteps creaked above. The stranger was awake. The stranger's voice echoed down the basement stairs, calm, too calm. "She told you, didn't she? She always does." He descended, holding something metallic in his hand. A ring of keys. "You think she's a child?" he said softly. "But she's not. Not anymore." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She clutched the bars tighter. "She's a memory," he went on, his face almost serene, a moment frozen. "I kept her here, in this house, in my photographs, in my tapes. I wouldn't let her grow up. I wouldn't let her leave," Emily screamed. "He's lying. He's the reason I'm here." The stranger's expression darkened. "She doesn't understand. She never will." He looked at me then, and his smile was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. "That's why she chose you, to take my place." The stranger dangled the keys like bait. "You can let her out," he whispered. "But if you do, she won't stay. She'll take you with her." Emily shook her head violently. "Don't listen. He wants you trapped too. That's how he keeps me here. By feeding me strangers. By making them believe. The stranger laughed, low, broken, as if mocking both of us. You think she's innocent? You think she's just a child? She's the reason this house rots. She begged me to keep her, to stop time. And I did. I gave her what she wanted. Emily's voice cracked. Liar. My hands trembled. Who was I supposed to believe? I spotted something folded on a chair. Emily's red jacket. The same one from the tape. I picked it up. It smelled of dust and rain. But beneath that, faintly, something metallic. Blood. The stranger's smile widened. Every time someone new puts that jacket on, she becomes real again. For a moment, that's the only way she feeds. Emily sobbed. Don't touch it. But I already had. The lights flickered. The room warped, like the house itself was breathing. And when I looked at Emily again, her face was sharper, older. For the first time, she looked less like a victim, and more like something else. I found the stranger's old journal hidden in a drawer, its pages brittle with age, entries dated back decades. She came to me again, begged me not to let her disappear. The house listens when I feed it, when I give her stories, lives. One day, she will choose another. One day, I'll be free. My stomach churned. The stranger hadn't kidnapped Emily. He'd been keeping her, and the house, alive, by binding people to it. Emily wasn't innocent. She was part of it. And now she was looking straight at me. You can end it, she whispered. All you have to do is take his place. The stranger extended the keys. His hand shook, but his eyes gleamed with hunger. Take them. She chose you. If you lock her in again, you'll stay young forever. The house will serve you. You'll never be alone. Emily pressed her face to the bars, desperate. Or let me out. Burn this house. Free us both. Both. The word clawed at me. If I freed her, what would she become? If I replaced him, what would I become? The house groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. The walls pulsed like veins. It was collapsing, or waking up. I made my choice. The keys clattered to the floor. I grabbed the red jacket, struck a match from the stranger's drawer, and threw it onto the brittle wood. Flames roared instantly, greedily. The house shrieked like a living thing. The stranger lunged at me, screaming, "No, you fool!" Emily's laughter rang out shrill and triumphant as the bars of her cage melted away. She stepped free, her form shifting, her eyes glowing with a hunger that was not human. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now I'm free." She vanished in the smoke. The stranger collapsed, wailing as the fire consumed him, and I ran. Through the cracking halls, past the burning photographs, out into the cold night. Behind me, the house crumbled in on itself, swallowed by fire. But in the distance, I swore I heard her voice. Sweet, innocent, and terrifying. "See you soon." I didn't look back until the sky was orange behind me. The house was gone, eaten alive by flames. All that remained was the smell, smoke, ash, and something bitter, like burnt sugar. But beneath the crackle of fire, I heard it. Children laughing. Not just Emily's voice, dozens of them. A chorus, as if the house had released every soul it had ever swallowed. My skin prickled. Was I a savior, or had I just unleashed something worse? I stumbled back into town, covered in soot. The streets were too quiet. When I reached the cafe, the bell above the door didn't ring. The place was empty. Chairs stacked, counters dusty, as if it hadn't opened in years. But the door had been unlocked, and on my table sat the tape recorder, still spinning. A single new sentence hissed from the speakers. He burned it down. Now it begins. That night, I dreamt of mirrors. Every reflection showed Emily. Sometimes she was 12. Sometimes she was older. 20, 30, 50, always watching. When I woke, the mirror above the dresser in my rented room was fogged. Written across it, with a child's fingertip, were two words, "Thank you." And beneath that, scratched deep into the glass, "Run." I dug into old town records. The cafe's address appeared again and again. Every 30 years, another fire, another missing child, another stranger accused and never seen again. The journal hadn't lied. Someone always became the keeper. Someone always fed the house. But I had broken the chain, or so I thought, because in the newspaper archive, dated exactly 30 years ago, I saw a photograph. The man accused then, the one everyone swore kidnapped a girl. It was the stranger, unaged, just like me now. The town began to change. Kids whispered about a girl in a red jacket who played by the river, though no one knew her name. Parents locked their doors after sundown. And at night, I heard knocks, 3 times, always at 3:33 a.m. When I finally opened the door, no one was there, but a red jacket lay folded on the porch, and beside it, a note, "Your turn." Weeks later, I passed the cafe. Its windows were lit again. The bell jingled when I pushed the door. Inside, the tables were full, people drinking, laughing, normal. But when I sat down, the waitress came over, a girl with long hair, freckles, and a red jacket. Her smile was sweet, familiar. "Welcome back," she said. "We've been waiting." The room fell silent. Every face turned toward me, and when I looked closely, I recognized them. The children's laughter I had heard in the flames, now wearing borrowed bodies. The waitress leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. Would you like to hear a story? The cafe lights flickered. The tape recorder clicked, and I realized the story wasn't ending. It was beginning again. I never left that cafe. Some say they still see me in the window, listening, nodding, writing things down. Every 30 years, someone else sits where I sat. And when the bell rings, the cycle begins. Emily is always there, waiting.